The money value for commodities in our country today is seemingly moving to a different perspective. Money value, as the economists will have it, is the amount of goods and services that money can buy at a particular time in space. For example, at 1,000 francs can buy a cup of gari. Thus, the money value for that 1,000 francs is a cup of gari. And if 1,000 francs cannot buy a cup of gari, it means that the money value for 1,000 francs has decreased. Thus, 1,000 becomes useless in terms of getting a cup of gari. Today, the prices of basic food commodities in our local market is moving skyrocketing in such a way that it is becoming a cause for concern. Many are asking questions, where are all these prices coming from? Where these days, it is difficult to take 5,000 francs CFA to get to the local market and to have adequate resources that you can use to feed your house at a particular time and day. A bag of rice used to be sold at 17,000 francs, 20,000 francs, and at least 21,000 francs, depending on the quality and quantity. These days, to get a bag of rice, it takes 22,000, 23,000, 25,000, and sometimes 26,000, depending on the quality. Thus, the 17,000, you can no longer buy a bag of rice, and a similar situation plagued with a cup of salt. 3 cups of salt used to be sold at 100 francs CFA. Today, you get to the market, you realize that the 3 cups cannot be sold at 100. It is 2 cups for 100. What happened with 100 francs CFA? A cup of boiled groundnut used to be sold at 50 francs. Today, it is difficult to see that for even 75. A cup of boiled groundnut is sold at 100, and sometimes with the cup maltreated and punctured in some different locality, in some way, in such a way that it cannot contain the 100 francs in itself. Come to the level of gari. A cup of gari used to be sold at 25 francs CFA. I remember in the good old days of 1998, where you get a cup of gari at 25 francs. It moved down to 30 francs in 2000s. In the late 2000s, that to be more precise, 2016, 2015, 2016, we had 40 francs. Today, a cup of gari is sold at 75 francs and sometimes 100, depending on the locality you find yourself into. A gallon, a 20 liters of red oil or palm oil used to cost 10,000, 9,000, 11,000, at least 15,000. Today, you are talking about 16, 17, and 18,000 francs CFA. Where really are we going to? Are we experiencing a situation of inflation? What is causing the problem of increase in prices, and who is to be blamed for this? What must the common man do to help the situation, or does the government has a role to play to stabilize the prices in such a way that we can have good prices of good commodities as we move on to the festive period and move on to 2022? This is House of Commons with me, TAH MAI JARVIS. You're welcome back from that transition. If you are just joining us, you're watching House of Commons, and we are talking about the increase in prices. We have 2 topics that we shall be deliberating on today's edition. We shall be looking at the increase in prices of commodities. Who is to be blamed for the increase in prices of commodities as far as prices are concerned? Here in the studio, we have no other person than Mbaku Jude, who is a journalist and is coming from the town of excellence in Buea. Mbaku Jude, you're welcome, and a privilege to have you.
Thank you very much, my good friend and brother TAH MAI JARVIS. Happy Christmas that is coming to you and to all the viewers this beautiful Sunday afternoon, viewers of my Mr. Prime. In regards to my fellow panelists who are here.
Thank you very much. Of course, Mbaku Jude, we want to say happy Sunday to you, Tamfu Jones, who is in the nation's economic capital, Lingwe. Ikubayenia.
Happy Sunday to all Cameroonians who are watching us out there, and I extend to my regards to the Fon of Bambalang. Mbaku Jude, it's a pleasure to meet you again on the panel. It's been a while. I extend to my greetings to those who are watching us from Limbe, especially in Jerusalem, Enanga, who's watching us from Limbe this afternoon, and all Cameroonians who are watching us. And we hope that our exchange here today is going to go a long way to help in the improvement of lives of Cameroonians as we move towards the emergence 2035.
And also, we want to say thank you all to those of you who are joining us or watching us online. It's been a while, and a happy Sunday to you. Happy Sunday to you joining us here in the studio. We will be expecting Atem and Ebako, who will be joining us here. And also we have Mr. May, who is joining us here also to discuss on the topic. Mr. Ernest, it's a privilege to have you. Isn't it?
Well, it's a pleasure sharing this platform again with you, Jarvis. You know, today in the streets of Cameroon, it's very easy for you to find angry people. You know, as the adage going, a hungry man is an angry man. So truly, there is a problem out there with the availability of food, the cost of food, and everything. So now we are going to look at what actually is the problem. So with these exchanges that we are going to exchange here today, I believe most of us are going to be imparted to know how to go about surviving in the survival environment of Cameroon.
Thank you very much. Those of you watching us online, Song Emmanuel Samuri, he says, happy greetings to Jarvis and my friend Tamfu and Mbaku Jude. Wish you guys good program. Mark Emos, Andy from Boston, Bob Gar, Chabiri. Also, we have Stephanie. We have Tanwi Rocket. We also have Picoro Daisy. All those of you watching us online, we want to say happy Sunday to you. We are joined here in the studio by Mr. Ebako. It's a privilege to have you, sir. Happy Sunday.
Thank you very much, TAH MAI JARVIS, and the other panelists who are in the house today, and a special greetings to all the Cameroonians and other worldwide viewers who are taking part in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Also, I'll begin with you, Tamfu Jones. If we look at the first topic, where we are looking at understanding the increase in prices of commodities and who takes the blame, believe me, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the situation of prices of commodities is not what we have today.
Yes, it's not what we have today. When you want to talk, they will tell you, especially now, in 2021, they will tell you it's an outbreak of COVID-19 that came about and brought the hike in the prices of commodities, because when you look critically, you realize that in 2014, the price of a bag of rice was about, let's say, 17,500 francs, and now it has increased up to about 22,500 to 23,000, up to 25,000 francs. And the only explanation that the Minister of Trade, Luc Magloire Tangana, is giving us is that it is due to the outbreak of the COVID-19. And he wrote to, I think, early 2020 to the International Monetary Funds and other international organizations, World Trade Organization too, pleading that they should see how they will intervene in the African economy, especially Cameroon, to see into how they will help the economy, because things are not going on well. But my question is, when money was sent to see how they will rescue or help assist the Cameroonians in the fight against COVID-19, over 380 billion.
And even bags of rice.
And even bags of rice. We even had a local supermarket gave a number of bags of rice that up till today, no account has been given of those, where those bags of rice were distributed. So you see that we are suffering and smiling, and some people are taking our suffering for their own, using it for their own personal interest. Over the 380 billion were taken, and some leaders siphoned the money, put in their pockets, and up till now, nobody is saying anything about it. Whereas that money was sent to see into it that maybe it could go a long way to reduce the prices of maybe electricity consumption, water, and all that. But yet, everything has remained the same, and nobody is saying anything. Because you go to the market now to get even a kilo of meat with bones, I think it has
balance and unbalanced scale.
Yeah, he has risen from 2,500 francs to 3,000 francs, and the scales that are even used are not the good ones, because when you go and you measure in another scale, you realize that it is not up to a kilo that they pretended to have sold to you. So we begin to see that when you want to allocate the blame, I think the government should take the greater share of the blame, because in times of war, because when you look critically, they always tell you COVID-19, but I can tell you that the war in the Northwest and the Southwest has affected the price of commodities in Cameroon. The price of commodities in Cameroon, it has affected it greatly, because the food, the basic commodities that we consume, majority come from the Northwest and the Southwest. And because of the crisis, people have abandoned their villages, people have run from their villages, people are no more cultivating, people are no more doing farming, there's less production. And more demand. More demands. Automatically, the prices are going to increase. So instead of looking only at the COVID-19 as what I saw the outing of the minister, we should also see into it that the problem of the North and the Southwest is solved. Because by the time, in wartime, administrators normally are supposed to change strategies and even increase the size of the administration. To see into it that it is true Cameroon has done something, because we cannot really deny that the Cameroon government has done nothing in that view. Because the Cameroon government, we have seen commissions upon commissions being created. That's the increase of administration to see that they solve particular problems. But unfortunately, the problems are still there. The various commissions are still in existence, running, and being paid with taxpayers' money, but yet nothing is changing in the country. So I think that the government should see how they will redirect their efforts to see into it that anything or any addition in administration is to come to solve a particular problem. If it doesn't solve the problem, they should see how they will revise it and make sure it solves a particular problem. First of all, to tackle the hike in prices of basic commodities in Cameroon, I think that the war in the Northwest and the Southwest is the first on the table. They should solve that problem, because when you talk about rice, the rice consumed in Cameroon is imported. The minister said that since importers complain that Chinese rice is expensive, they can now go to other rice producing countries like India, because Indian rice is cheaper than Chinese rice. They import from there. But what happens of our own local rice that is Nyendop? If you stop the war, people, and you subsidize farmers in Dop, they will increase production, and our market will be flooded with rice. And even in the north, they produce rice in the north. You will go to those places where rice is produced, because it is the highest commodity that's consumed here in Cameroon, and it is all imported. Because when you talk about the hike in prices, they always tell you on importation. What have we done locally? Even the oil. The vegetable oil that used to be 1,100 francs is now 1,300 francs. And when they tell you that it is due to COVID-19 that some countries, the producing countries, have blocked their borders. What about us here? Does that mean that the government is unable to bring in machines that can refine the vegetable oil so that it can be consumed locally? And why, if not, exported also to other countries so that they can also benefit from? Okay. Are we too small to export?
And you, Atem, Mbaku, once again, we are glad to have you for House of Commons. I want to ask you this question. When we look at the increase in prices, the money value has decreased these days, because money value is what money can buy in terms of goods and services. But these days, if you have 1,000 francs to get into the market, you cannot get the basics that can keep your house running. What could be the problem? He just pointed out the fact that we have the plateau of issues stemming from the Anglophone crisis. But could we also say there are other factors that account for this?
Yes, TAH MAI JARVIS, I think there are other factors that will contribute to the situation that we are facing today in Cameroon. It is true that we're having a twin pandemic, the Anglophone crisis and the pandemic, which is a global concern. But apart from that, we have other, how will I call it, other issues which by default, things like this are inevitable to happen, because we may complain of having not to, how will I call it, grow our own food commodities like rice, like he cited, and other issues. You see, but this sometimes when we are not able to lay proper foundations, our analysis becomes like a tree that is being carried by a wind. You see, that is why it still goes back to what I call the structures and the systems in place. Cameroon is not being led by individuals. Cameroon is led by systems which seems not to be working for the Cameroonians. And then we are still struggling to retain and maintain structures like this, hoping that we are going to develop ourselves with this kind of system until, like he rightly cited, if we do not learn to make what we are going to consume, that simply means we are going to depend on other nations on or other suppliers which are not within our communities. And that is going to make life very expensive. And this does not only go to food commodity, it goes to politics, it goes to our ways of leadership and our ways how we produce leaders and how we build government. As long as such systems are not those that really derive from the spirit of the people, you will never have what is going to improve your society. And these are the genealogies of all of these complaints that we're having today. Even if we were to say the Anglophone crisis were not, we did not have the Anglophone crisis, I don't think that we will have a, how will I call it, the economy would have been better. We have seen in other societies apart from Cameroon, Zambia, before its last election, the former president made a GDP of 6%, took it over to 12%, yet the life standard of the people did not improve. Rather, it decreased with the height of their GDP. So you come to realize that when a nation's resources does not circulate in its private sector, it affects the masses. And this is really the main core problem we are having today in Cameroon. If the private sector, I would say that the private sector was doing well, even if prices go up, people will not complain because the money is there for people to afford. Yeah. But the private sector is bleeding and the government is the only breadwinner. So if there's any crisis in Cameroon, it affects the common man. That's why we are complaining today. So it is not really the absence of money, it's not the absence of goods, it's just because the masses or the private sector has been kept away in the process of nation building, and that's why we are where we are, even citing the Anglophone crisis that he also mentioned, which is also another contributing factor in creating the how will I call it, the increase of price and the scarcity of goods, because due to transportation in certain areas where food cannot leave to get to other areas to reach other people, that becomes a major challenge. And when that process is undergone, it makes the prices of those things become very expensive for the end users.
You are a Pan-Africanist. You are advocating for a strong and sustainable Africa. When we look at the situation in Cameroon, especially when he cited the issue of rice, we deal more of importation. Can we say from your angle that is it an issue of the fact that the administration is not controlled within? That's why we cannot subsidize Ndop rice or those from the north, because rice is produced in the north and rice is produced also in Ndop, and we are dealing more of importation than cultivating in a local market. What could be the problem now? Because now COVID-19 came, we are blaming it on importation on COVID, that the increase in prices. Why can't we not make advantage of the fact that we can produce this and subsidize it? Is it a colonial policy?
If in the very first instance we have already admitted that we are not capable or we are not mature enough to run our own systems or run our own governments, run our own politics, it already tells us that the rest of the other things we are going to depend on others in order to survive. And this is the same thing that we are trying to explain, that like you are asking this question, TAH MAI JARVIS. You see, let me put it this way. If you live in a country or in a nation where you do not have access to your own resources, you do not have control over your own politics, as a matter of fact, coming right down to your education and to your health, you are not in control of any of these things. What kind of a human being that leaves you? So these are the things that we are saying, that until we will go back into creating our own systems, our own leadership, our own cultures, our own identity, whereby we too can export, like he rightly said, we will live to depend on others. And that is why the system in place is one that will always make the Cameroonians to depend on others and not to depend on themselves. And these are the structures, like you rightly say, colonial structures. Yes, they are colonial structures. We cannot deny that. Why do we pay colonial tax? Many Cameroonians do not know that Cameroon pays colonial tax every year. But is that discussed in the parliament? The answer is no. It's never discussed in the parliament. But Cameroon pays colonial tax every year. This simply means that if you pay colonial tax, for example, it only means that you are occupying a territory of another person. That's the meaning of it. And that's why we don't have a currency. That's why we don't own economy. That's why we don't run our own politics. And that is why the government in place is one that cannot reflect the demands of the society.
And thus affecting the increase in prices.
And does affect, but this is what we are trying to say, that a lot of Cameroonians may don't understand the politics which is played at this level. You see, TAH MAI JARVIS, there is an objective in Cameroon, same as in all of these other African countries. And that objective is exploiting the Cameroonians at their 85%, both human and natural resources. This simply means that at the end of the day, it weighs back on the common people, because the role of the government is to squeeze by the structure to extract the 85% at the interest of those they are representing. And that's why they do not represent the people. That's why they cannot meet the demands of the people. As a matter of fact, the struggle we are having in Cameroon is the link where the masses do not have the connection with the government. And that's why you realize that the problems in Cameroon today is difficult for the government to implement change, because each time they try to do something in bringing a change, they do not have connection with the masses. This is what we are saying. Okay. All things they have put in place in the Northwest and Southwest have not affected the common people who are going through what they are going through. And this becomes a major challenge when the government does not have that relationship with its masses. Okay. It becomes a huge problem.
Mr. Mayor Ernest, a bag of rice. No, let me come to Gary. A cup of Gary. I remember I bought a cup of Gary for 25 francs in 2011. 2012, 35 francs, 2015, 40 francs, and now we are talking about 75 francs. How do we explain this? Secondly, 3 cups of salt used to be sold at 100 francs, but now it's 2 cups of salt at 100 francs. A cup of rice used to be sold, 3 cups of rice used to be sold at 100 francs. It moved to 50 francs. To 2 cups of 50 francs. And in some cases, you're having 1 cup of 100 francs. How do we explain all this? Is it COVID-19 and food crisis and the crisis in the far north region that's affecting this?
Jarvis, to answer this question, there is no direct answer to answer all these issues you enumerated. You will understand that as society evolves, there are changes in society that are either positive or negative. And as such, like my co-panelists have pointed out, we are actually living a life that is being imposed on us, not the kind of life we would like to decide for ourselves. I will shock you to say that I'm one of the last generations in our village to have gathered a rice farm. So this brought me to the understanding how, when I did my research way back, why we had to abandon the cultivation of rice. It was generally told the people that your rice is more expensive than imported rice. And we looked at how can imported rice be sold at 6,000 francs while locally produced rice will cost 10,000 francs a bag. And we deceived with that belief that imported rice is cheaper. And we went for imported rice and abandoned cultivation. But in the long run, what happened? The imported rice has become 4 times, 5 times more expensive than that which was produced locally. And one of the things that is so touching in it is that we have lost the ability. None of us, again, can recall how rice was planted or how it is harvested, how it is treated. And it is something that we have to go and seek from somebody else to be able to do that again. We lost that. If you go to my community today, it would appear as if nothing had ever been done in the domain of rice cultivation. Nobody ever remembers what a rice seed looks like. So in turn, now we depend on those who retained the technology, retained the technique in order to survive. And you know that he who pays the piper determines the tune of music to be played. You understand that the prices are not more fixed by us because we don't have any power over the production. It comes back to we don't have a culture. It is something that is already imposed on us. You know, today it is very normal for us to go out there and boast that I'm eating shawarma, I don't drink gari. And you see that when you already abandon the interest in gari, he who produces gari becomes discouraged and then abandon the production of gari. When you will not be able to afford shawarma again and you want to come back to gari, the gari will not more be there, because you did not encourage a person producing that gari to keep on producing. And it is that gari that is going to save you. And the lone person who was left behind is going to sell you that gari at the price that he determines. And today, Jarvis, I will still shock you. Gari in Cameroon is not produced by Cameroonians, it's produced by Chinese. And it is labeled there. You saw it. It was shared all over social media that Cameroon made in China gari in Cameroon. And that is the fun of it. So you see that.
So how do you make in China gari in Cameroon where we're in Cameroon?
That is the fun of it. So you see that we abandon the things that are important to us, thinking that we are following things that are good for us. But in the end, we still come back to follow the things that were normally ours. Because you will not explain why Chinese should be the ones producing our gari for us. And who is going to pay for the price? We are going to pay for the price. So it boils down back to the same thing as my co-panelists were saying, that we need policies in place to empower the local person. I don't understand how we would like take away the power from the people on how to decide what they eat and how they eat it and when they produce it. And then we now are left with no choice but to depend on what is imported. You will look at about 90% of our produce in our supermarkets are imported. They are not locally produced. And supermarkets are like the venues where those top classes buy.
If I get you correctly, you are just stating that the state need to redefine the policies and set an agenda that will promote home production and consumption.
That is the catch. If we have those policies in place, I believe we will not be faced with a situation where these prices will just be moving up at will and moving down at will, because it is working at the interest of somebody who has it to work that way.
But we have a Minister of Trade. Can the minister not have
what we call like
a barem? We always have in other countries.
Let me cut you short
we
there
have
that Mr.
price control.
Ebako has clearly stated here that we have a system that do not represent the people. So when you quote again the Minister of Trade, it's as if you don't understand the meaning of a system representing the people, working according to the aspirations of the people. There is a cutoff on what is being done that the people should feel comfortable and what is actually the aspiration of the people. There is a cutoff. There is no link. There is no direct connection in what we see as governmental policies with what obtains in ground. Like if you you decide that today, I would like that Cameroonians should be self-sufficient in rice production, or in the quality. Let's not say self-sufficient. I would like rice to be abundantly available in the Cameroonian market, and you decide to import all the rice. You have not encouraged the Cameroonians to actually have rice abundantly sufficient in Cameroon.
Okay. Those of you watching us online, Ricky Samuel, just keep on crying on TV platform. Why? Thank you very much. Akere Joy, Cameroon is a country that has enough fertile soil to produce enough rice, but has decided to discourage home produced rice and encourage imported rice. Elvis Fango, watching us on Facebook. Jerome Array, Facebook says, from the economic point of view, prices are rising because of population increase and supply cannot meet demand. Land is fixed and more land is used for other goods, not for agricultural produce. Land is a fixed factor is facing diminishing return as it becomes less fertile for agriculture. Importation of foreign-made goods at the expense of home-made goods, lack of check and balance in an economic system. Mbaku, Jude, you are a journalist. You are based in the Southwest region where we have other local markets like the Moya Market, Great Support Market, Boyatown Market. And we were told when we were growing up that Fako Division, the Southwest region, used to be the bread-breeding basket of the rest of the nation because he has a lot of products that will supply to the other regions of the country. And when we see the situation now, even the same area is faced with increasing prices of commodities. Is it because we lack price control mechanism, or our price control team don't do their work as it's supposed to do? What really is the factor here?
Thank you, Tamai, for giving me this opportunity. Now, I don't want to talk like an economist. I want to talk like a Cameroonian who has lived over the years and has witnessed this situation. Now, when I look at the topic, understand the increase of basic commodities, the increase of price in basic commodities, I want to really cut, there's a cut I want to do there. The increase there is on basic commodities, and the basic commodities you are talking about largely has to do with foodstuff. If you see so far, those examples you have been quoting from the start of this program editorial, it's been on foodstuff.
Yes.
Palm oil,
Gari, rice,
and
salt,
tomato sauce,
granite.
Maggi. See, it's on foodstuff. Ask yourself, why have we not witnessed same over the year 2002, 2001, 2003, when we started having the mobilist phones and the cell phones into our market? Over the years, the prices are falling.
Yes.
Phones, gadgets, those electronic gadgets are becoming cheaper.
Yeah.
Automobile are becoming cheaper. So we are witnessing this increase only on foodstuff. And so why is it only on foodstuff? A phone that I used to buy in those days for 100 and something thousand, today you buy it for 5,000. You understand? So why are we witnessing an increase in other kind of goods? And on foodstuff, there is a serious increase over the years. Now, we have advanced, my brother Jones started by advancing the Anglophone crisis.
Coronavirus.
COVID-19. That 19 says it started in 2019. But we had this increase since when we had the devaluation in the early 90s.
Yes.
So,
and progressively.
It is in 2013 or so, we even had 4 increase.
And there was a 2008 strike.
Sorry, 2008 when
yes.
we had the strike.
Yes.
And the increase, we have not witnessed any decrease in fuel price. Fuel is a basic commodity. So it is not even about the Anglophone crisis. It is not about the COVID-19. These things came yesterday, when the economy was already there, witnessing this downturn. So what is wrong? I think Ebako puts it right when he says it's a cultural problem. Ernest, you got it right too, from my perspective. When you say that historically we are not handing down, when you were growing up, you had a rice farm.
Yeah, rice farm.
And today, our young people, our siblings, they don't see them farming as an option. If they don't eat shawarma, they see you eating gari like you are the last person.
Even for food corn.
So they go to the farm, they carry achaba.
These are the things. These are the things. Now, let me ask you this. Go down to Kukemboma, go down to Manfe, where we produce cocoa in thousands and thousands of tons. Within the 90s and today, how much has increased in the price of cocoa beans? But if you go on our local market, obviously you see an increase in the price of chocolate or butter, yes. These are things that they import. They take from here, we produce, because we cannot finish, we stay us at that level, send to them, they produce and send here, inflate the prices for us. So I'll accept with everyone on this table that the basic problem we have is finishing. We have sold our own brains that we don't think it is important for us to keep the culture of production. Our stronghold is agriculture in Africa as a whole. Farming, production, raw material, natural resources. That's our strength. Those white guys, they don't have this. We have our natural food. When I was growing up, I'm sure I'm in the same age bracket, let's put it that way. And generation with you. Age group. When we were growing up, every household in our quarter has 2 or 3 farmlands that our mothers rent. We did subsistence farming. Saturday was a general farming day. And some days,
public holidays.
Wow,
and sometimes you just pray that there should not be public holiday because
what are you saying? There are days
we used to go to school, come back and go to the farm. Come and eat, sleep.
There are days we stop school and go to the farm. The truth is, that is a culture which we're supposed to uphold. So that there should never be a day you wake up and then because of a rice increase in the market, you will not have cassava on your farm. Potatoes,
cassavas.
What are you saying? We used to have pears, mango, all those fruit stuff, plums. Where are they today? Adnan fruits. Where are they today? They are extinct in our communities because
So we are witnessing a kind of a cultural imperialism.
Yes. On our agriculture, on our agriculture.
Everything.
So if we don't trace this problem, we will not be able to fight it. We will start fighting it mentally, culturally. Like I agree with Ebako on this one. It is we are buying a colonial mindset. Bakeries are opening up everywhere around here, and we think that
farms are closing everywhere.
Farms are closing up, and we think that if we don't associate ourselves to passing around the bakery in the evening and getting a paper to go home, means we are not matching up to societal standards. So everyone wants to go to a bakery and shop shawarma and shop pizza, instead of using the money to support local farmers, buy enough of our natural food from our farmlands and take home. So we have a problem which is we want to eat what we see on the television from the white man's land.
Okay.
So how do we struggle to fight this increase in price? I'm not saying that basically the government has a role. Every government has a role in everything in the country. And I keep saying that an economy of a nation is defined by its policies. Policies are political decisions. And who in the best place to take a political decision is the political and administrative structure of a country. So if we are having an economic downturn, we're having inflation, we are having increase in prices, the government has to sit back and take a general view.
But Mbaku Jude, will you agree or disagree with this school of thought who says that it's because of the fact that the government has not improved on farm-to-market road, and there are no farm-to-market road, which has discouraged a lot of people who would have ventured in agriculture, because we have a lot of agricultural schools these days, but instead many people tend to look at the other aspect.
No, I think people who are that school of thought are misleading others. Think of it, when you were growing up in the early 90s to today, when have you realized that there are more roads to market from farms? The roads will always keep increasing. There are more roads today than there used to be. We have accessible roads. Let me tell you, for instance, from Bamenda to Manfe used to be a nightmare before 2010. Today we have a wide trans-Saharan highway, the Enugu corridor. Road, that is a road. That road used to.
Yeah, that's the main road. We are talking about the bush roads.
I'm coming. It's still opening up. If that main road is there and gives you access to motorbikes,
I want us to contextualize. For example, you are in Fako division. The main production, the powerhouse in Fako division is Ekona, Munya, My 16, Munyenge, Bafia, Ekata, Owe. These are the villages that are stopped. Wangai, Bonakanda, Butingi. These are the villages that are stopped. Now, can we for sure boast that there are enough farm-to-market roads in this main powerhouse that does production, as should have been?
Well, generally, I'm not saying that.
The means of transporting this produce from the
farm
to the market has increased. We have motorbikes that can virtually ascend any area.
But this area,
because of the bad nature of the roads, the motorbikes transport these goods at very high prices.
That's what I'm saying.
Goes a long way to increase the price
Yes.
of commodities.
So the problem is
so farm to market road pose a great when it comes to.
That's what we are saying.
What we have to agree on is that there is scarcity of these products, and that has led to a price increase.
Okay, Mbaku Jude land.
Yes, I was going to say that we have seen over years more roads have been opened. As we are living, like, we cannot be saying that roads are still folding up. Roads are opening. Every one project that is done by government anywhere gives an opportunity for accessibility. Now, the problem is not opening farm to market roads. The problem is the
getting involved in the agriculture.
Getting involved in the agriculture is one.
And having a return value on it.
Good. The value of what we produce. Okay, you have a farmland. You have a farmland, maybe you produce 30 bags of cocoa per season. You understand? Okay, your problem would definitely not be the road if you know that you hire a transporter who will give you value for your money.
Okay.
So the problem is not farm to market road. Let's encourage agriculture. Let's not make this generation of young people think that agriculture is for the poor village.
Mbaku, Jude, briefly on this, will you still again disagree or agree with this school of thought that is bent on farm to market, stating that the younger generation don't want to have problems going to the farm? They want to have their cars leading them to the farm. After agriculture with swag, and that because of the fact that we don't have these farm to market roads that easily generate access. For example, let's go to Meme Division. I want to be practical now. The powerhouse of Meme Division, we are talking about Bombe Bakundu, Baleangi, Ediki, Mabunji. We are also talking about Kwakwa Nake Bole. The roads to Bole that produces this cocoa is poor and deplorable, very deplorable. Baleangi the same, Owe the same, Bombe Bakundu the same. Especially these are Gari production areas. These are areas that produce a lot of Gari. Now, can you for sure say that okay, these people don't have problem with farm to market road? Their problem is not farm to market road, and I don't know.
My argument is this, Jarvis, time I listen. My argument is not that we don't have a problem with farm to market roads.
Okay.
There is a problem with roads generally, not just farm to market. I'm coming from Bamenda the other day. From
Matism.
Is it even Matism? From West region. In fact, a good part of West region into the northwest, and then the entire from Babaju, the entire northwest itself, the entire city of Bamenda itself does not have road. So when you talk about farm to market, not just about farm to market. Okay. I'm saying that we have issues with roads, but the major concern is our culture.
Okay.
Cool. Our culture of understanding now that agriculture is our backbone. If prices are increasing, it's because we have refused to produce.
Like in economic comparative absolute cost advantage.
How many cooperatives do you know that exist today? There used to be cooperatives everywhere. People bring agri shows used to be today you go for an agri show, you'll be shocked.
Thank you. Back with you, to be coming back to you. I want us to wrap up this. I'll move to part 2 of the program. Part 2 of the program, we shall be looking at the Fon of Bambalang, who is still under captivity. What can the House of Chiefs do to ensure that to mediate into the issue? This issue of farm to market road.
The issue of farm to market road, the farm to market road plays a great role when it comes to the hiking of the prices of basic commodities in our market. Given that, first, when you say that the road does not play a role, I would disagree with you because it plays a great role. Come to think of it this way, practically, that a young man who graduates from the university, from the Department of Agriculture, wants to embark into agriculture, goes to his or her village, maybe in Ekona, Benge, as you said earlier, and realizes that after planting your cassava, processing it into gari, your gari will end up not being sold and get fermented in Ekona because there are no the means of transportation leaving Ekona, either because of roads which are bad and the crisis. Because now when the roads are bad, probabilities are very high that you can produce plantains and the plantains end up ripening in the farm.
Like the case of this village that was burned down in Bafia, Munyenge.
That's what we're talking about. I have seen people keep their produce waiting for a car. Because there are villages, we are talking here like this, there are villages in the suburb where they wait for 3 days for a car to come and carry this produce.
Let me not cut you short. If you go to, I want us to go now pragmatically in the northwest region, like in this Mbengwi, where you are going towards Njikwa, Oshe. There's a village called Emwa, Atong, Nkun. These villages that produce a lot of cocoyams. I went to Atong, that is in Meta. I went to Atem and we discovered that they have bags of cocoyams pie. They wait for 2 weeks
for a car
to have these hillocks to come, and sometimes the hillock doesn't come to transport it to Nkun, and it ends up dying there and getting rot there. So,
okay, and then with this scenario, you want a youth to leave school, go and involve in his or herself into agriculture to get what? Because when the produce gets bad, it is losses. Who will be working at the loss? At the end of the day, you see that agriculture is not encouraged because of this bad road. So now the few people who succeed to transport this produce from the market, from the bushes, from the farms to the market, hiking the prices because only the transportation of these produce are very high. The cars that succeed to get into these bushes or the farms to get this produce transported to the market, hiking their transport, and this businessmen in turn transfer the high transport to the price of the produce. Automatically the produce become very high in the market. For instance, we used to buy a bucket of cocoyam for 1,500. At the beginning it was 400, 300 francs. It went up to 1,000 to 1,500, 1,500. As we speak, it is sold in Douala for 4,500. A bucket of cocoyam. Why? Market road to farm to market road. Cocoyam were produced in Boya. What has happened? Even in Boya, you go to Boya, you in
Munya market to be more precise.
You cannot buy cocoyam for 2,000 and you feed the family.
A basin of potatoes used to be 1.5.
Even cocoyam is 1.5.
Yes, 500.
1.5. But what is happening today? You go there, they are selling the small bucket for 3.5.
And sometimes they have manipulated the bucket because something has.
They won't put things on that. So the farm to market roads are very important. So the government should see into it, and we should stop always saying that people, because most of the time they say that the youth have run away from agriculture. Look at the trends today. How much will they get from the agriculture that will encourage them to go into the agriculture if they don't have the means of transportation? Because first of all, how much will you rent a farm? How much will you transport the goods from the farm to the market? Okay. All those things should be considered. And who will give you the capital to start a farm after school?
Andrew Atem Mbaku. You listen to Mbaku Jude. I want us to take his angle. He talk about more of an acculturation problem, which is an imperialist problem where people are made to understand that the system in which they are is archaic and that to embrace the new system. A case in hand he cited is the availability of bakeries, more bakeries and less cooperatives that we have today, more bakeries and less farms that we have today. You are a Pan-Africanist. How do we explain this and how do we overcome this?
Well, I think everyone is making quite an interesting point as to what is happening in Cameroon today. It is true that from the very beginning we accepted to give up our identity and to adopt an identity which was imported in the hope that we were going to all develop together, but time has proven it contrary. So if we are going to overcome this situation, TAH MAI JARVIS, you see, like I keep saying, when you expect others to appoint governments and leaders for you, and you expect those leaders to make your life better, you are wasting your time. You see, we have always been brainwashed, or we have always been schooled that leadership should always come from up there. We don't want gods who don't come down to the people. We don't want leaders who do not grow from the masses or the doors of the people. We are tired. We have seen that all the democratically elected presidents, administrators, government officials are doing us no good. They don't represent the demands of the society.
So we should not go by democracy.
No, that's what you see, we are talking here of culture. Democracy is not our culture. That is a simple truth, TAH MAI JARVIS. We have been in this road, this is 60 years today. How has it benefited us? We are talking of, how will I call it, scarcity of, or shortage of food and bad roads to farm, to market roads and all of that. All of this comes back to leadership. You don't need to tell a minister on what to do. It's like me telling you on what to do for your family. You should know by default what you need to do for your society. And this they are not doing. So at the end of the day, you come to realize that we are being misguided and we are being led by people who do not have interest for their own society. People who do not have concern for their own countrymen, because if we live in this kind of system and then we are hoping that situations like this are going to change, we are just wasting our time. Because at the end of the day, it is us, the common people, who feel the impact of what we are discussing. Those that are up there, as a matter of fact, they don't have the kind of problems we have. We are the ones going through the untold suffering. You see, and that is why you see TAH MAI JARVIS. Let me cite some very few examples, because this is what we have been used to doing all the time. Giving credit to those who don't deserve credit and discrediting those that deserve credit. We have the armed separatist fighters today in the northwest and southwest that are controlling those two regions, they were never democratically elected. As a matter of fact, majority of the people seem to align with them because they somehow sprang to hold the voices of the people. Their methods may not have been the best, but they have proven somehow that the right to self-determination and how will I call it, the sense of leadership, you must not occupy an office.
It's not based on office or democracy.
Exactly.
It's based on what the people need.
Based on what the people need. And that we saw with Sankara, that we saw with Gaddafi, that we saw with other leaders who were like Malcolm X, Marcos Garvey, who were never from that level of leadership that was being produced by the criteria of the United Nations. So this is what I'm trying to say, that until we go back, TAH MAI JARVIS, to start keeping our values, keeping our culture, maintaining our identity, and then begin to apply what works for us. That is the only time where we can emerge and also probably lend to other nations or export to other nations. But rather we are here importing everything. Who determines the value of our currency? Those are the questions we need to ask if we are talking about the increase of price. Who determines the value of our currency? We do not have a currency. So who determines the value of that currency? It is not the Cameroonians. Someone else has to determine the value of your currency. Now, how is currency made? Currency is made out of value. Now, let us find the value of dollars in Cameroon. The value of dollar in Cameroon has no value. Take all around good look of Cameroon, you will find what we call natural resources. It is these natural resources that is converted to value that makes currency. So as a matter of fact, we should have been the ones to determine the value of our currency based on our resources, whether both natural or human resources. But we are not in control of all of these things. And these are the major challenges, Mr. TAH MAI JARVIS, that we need to already see that in the first beginning, we already are facing with a severe problem, which we ignore, and then we think that we are going to excel after accepting to abide by a lie where a country which do not own its own currency. All of these things will keep coming up, whether there's Anglophone crisis or there's no Anglophone crisis, whether there's pandemic or there's no pandemic. All of these things will rise up because that is a system set in place.
The North now that used to produce cattle is faced with a conflict, intercommunal conflict between the Amashua and I think the Arashua and the Moskums. And we have 10,000 displaced persons that based on United Nations statistics as we speak. And so far, the Northwest region too also, which produces conflict. You move now to the East region, the Seleka rebels, and you move now to other areas which are affected in one way or the other. At the end of the day, Atem Mbaku, briefly, where do we go from here?
TAH MAI JARVIS, you see, when you are dealing with structures which are older than persons, it's difficult for you to really apprehend what is really happening here. Like I said to you before, all these countries, Cameroon is not the only country going through what is going through. Africa is
but we can fix it now. We
cannot fix it. Let me tell you the level at which we are today. Cameroon cannot fix its own problem. If we are going to survive right now in Cameroon or in Africa, it's going to take a collective effort of all of us in order to change this situation.
I want to ask you this question. You keep blaming a central system that because Cameroon doesn't control, which means they seemingly little or nothing we can do. But we've seen ministers embezzled money. Is this the same structure or the West that asks these ministers to embezzle billions of COVID-19 funds, funds that way we can do local things with? Is this the same people, the West that's asking them to embezzle? Is it the West that's asking them to take like the tractors at the Bolowa Tet Fair, Agri-Pastoral show that has been abandoned there? Is it money, chunk of money was spent there? Is it these same Western nations that are telling these people that don't go and construct farm to market road in Kwakwa, in Mbengwi, in the Sangmelema? Is it these are local things we can do that we have control over? If we cannot do this,
TAH MAI JARVIS, TAH MAI JARVIS, You see this question you have asked is not applicable.
The hands are tied.
Pardon? No, allow me. No, 1 minute, just wait.
Briefly, so that
okay. They will contribute. It's okay. You see, that is why we still go back to what I keep away what we call the structural adjustment policies.
Yes.
I don't know if you understand me. Now you have to understand that Cameroonians, the taxes we pay in this country goes into service loans which this country has indebted itself. Now, how do you think that the government intends to pay the loans which it owes either to Paris Club, IMF, World Bank, and other foreign creditors? How do you think they expect to pay? They expect to pay it from the local people. They expect to get this money from the local people. You talk about embezzlement, and you ask if it is a colonial structure. Do you know that to the level at which we are, Cameroon, as a matter of fact, TAH MAI JARVIS is not for Cameroonians.
Andrew, we'll be coming to you. Because of time, let me get to Mr. Ernest. Mr. Ernest, Mr. Andrew painted the picture, but I want to ask, if you leave from here, let's take Douala, littoral region as an example, go to Njumbi, go to Lum, come towards Douala itself, Peka, Weed, Lendi, all these areas that we are faced with challenges, and you see there are top elites there, ministers presumably are accused to have embezzled huge chunks of money. Isn't this the European people who are asking them that when you are going to that Peka, don't go and tie that farm to Market Road because it will affect our colonial structure?
Jarvis, you want to have a direct answer to that question. Let me tell you that a direct answer to that question is a yes. Let me tell you the implications of siphoning funds, embezzlement. Look, this is a way of sending back their money to them. This money is embezzled and stored in foreign banks, of which those people who have embezzled that money don't have any access. It remains the colonial power's money, because the people who have embezzled this money don't have access to that money. Jarvis, if you embezzle 10 billion in Cameroon, you don't have access to that 10 billion. You will die and your family will stay wretched. Listen to that. If they give you tractors, go and open farms. Jarvis, you are not supposed to open farms because we are still supposed to supply you with food. If you use those tractors in opening farms, it is given on credit. It is a loan that you have not done anything with it. It becomes a bad loan. You are paying back from something else, not with what that loan has produced from you. Those tractors are never meant to be used. They are meant to be kept there, that it should be a sign of a loan contracted. It is never meant to be implemented. We don't need to open farm to market roads, because once you open farm to market roads, you will start producing your own crops, producing your own food, and you will not be dependent on us. Let me tell you, this caricature of the UN parading himself here as the war saver, war food program, it is not helping the people when they must have beaten you until you have cried. There is a demonstration, you see, was done by Mussolini. He said he took a chick and then deprived it all eating and then thrown grains to that chick, and the chick came back respectful and picked up that grain. If you can understand that demonstration, you will know what is being done to the African society. This was imposed for you to be beaten to a point where when they come with a loaf of bread, you have to run and bow down in front of them. That war food program has come to save us. Let me tell you, these people going around the northwest and southwest region, that they are sharing food. When they go to communities, the communities come out with food to welcome them. Don't you know that? Because we are not yet starving at that point where we have to take that food and then Jarvis, let me tell you, they are parading themselves as saviors. They are not saviors.
Are you sure that
look,
the community prepare food to
let me say, those people parading the northwest and southwest that are sharing food, they are being welcomed with food items. Ask those who are involved in non-NGO to share a food. They will tell you what they,
you said go there,
you receive food, because they are still beating us to the point. They are still beating us to the point where we have to accept any kind of thing they identify us with. So this is the kind of things that when you say a minister have embezzled money, where is that money stored? In foreign banks. That is why some of them are making attempts to store that money in their house. You will hear that a minister, 80 million francs was stolen from a minister's home, because they have discovered that when they send those money in foreign accounts, they don't have access to those money again.
Okay, now
let me answer a question. Who is the father of a child? Who is the father of a child? Respond me that question. Who is the father of a child?
Mr. May, a minister embezzles 60 billion and put in his house. Is it the colonial master that adds that to this money?
Who is the father of the child?
I had a very short answer for that question. The answer is short and clear. The colonial master is the one encouraging embezzlement. Ask me
Period.
How.
Period.
I will tell you that.
Period.
If I know that I will embezzle and nothing will be done to me, because I am not looking into the ethnos of the colonial master or bringing them any trouble, because who the colonial master hates is a person that start looking into their interest. As long as embezzlement is not looking into their interest, it poses no problem to them. It is legal, so they are encouraging embezzlement.
Yes.
But that's what they do here now.
Let me just briefly say that, in as much as I buy all the ideas, on this issue of this embezzlement issue we're talking about, that is causing, see, there are root causes of inflation. These other ones of embezzlement and war in the northeast, south, those are only accelerating. They are all determinants.
They are only accelerating.
There are other factors that are working. But what like I said earlier, we had these things before these other ones came in. Before APVA, before they started arresting ministers, before corruption really chopped our economy, we have realized a progressive increase in prices. You used to buy beer how much? And over the years, you see that one bottle of beer used to buy for 125.
It's determinant of economic growth.
Good. So the truth is that we are actually looking at these things from two perspectives. From the subsistence kind of agricultural setup to the extensive one, which the government has to manage at the macroeconomic level. Because it is at that level which we can be looking at national development, per capita income, and the growth, national growth. But we, like personally, I'm saying that we should encourage local subsistence farming to beat hunger. That is the crux. When we say increase in prices of goods and services, if in my house I realize that gari is expensive, and I used to eat gari 3 times per week, or rice, and I realize it's expensive, and I'm a subsistence farmer, I have cocoyams, I have plantain and other crops, I'll switch. So I'll beat hunger. And then economically, what will happen? Prices of gari will drop, will come back. So in as much as we want to encourage government to boost up macroeconomic, extensive agricultural kind of setups, we should individually, President Paul Biya said, I don't want to talk like a politician, I'm quoting him.
No, but he's a president.
Yes, the president of the Republic.
The president of the Republic.
Good. He once said that farming does not deceive. And this is true. This is the truth. I grew up in a family where we do rearing of pigs, we do rearing of fowls, rabbits. Everywhere in the compound are fruit crops.
As we even speak, Chinese are acquiring hectares of land, hundreds of hectares of land for farming. So they will cultivate cassava there and make gari and we'll buy. If we are not careful.
I'm ending by saying that every Cameroonian should have a little farm at your backyard.
Let's take on this message and get to part 2 of the program. It says, farm to market roads are a very important factor to give agriculture the value it deserves. If roads accessible, produce will get to the market. If roads are accessible, produce will get to the market and sold at great price. Poor roads result in loss of produce due to poor storage facilities. To make agriculture attractive to young graduates, there is need for the government to focus on 2 important issues. 1, good roads. 2, electricity or power supply. Once these 2 things are provided, leave the rest to us farmers and see how we feed Africa. Special greetings to you all in the studio. This coming from an anonymous sender. I'm sure that should be from someone abroad. First, the state should be blamed because I know villages like Isebe, AKEBA, and Fundong subdivisions are good producers of beans, banana, and Irish. In Boom subdivision, we have villages like Subum, Buba, Ngunambong, Gunkimbi, Kichui, are producer of maize, plantain, sweet potato, sugar cane, etc. But there are no farm to market roads. Schools are created in every village with no curriculum on agriculture. It's coming from TAM. Thank you very much. And all those of you watching us on social media, we wish to part 2 of our program. Part 2 of our program, I want us to look at this issue, which is the role in which the Fon of Bambalang are still under captivity. What must be done, by the House of Chiefs in the North Northwest region to secure his release. Tamfu Joan, I'll start this program with you. You are someone who understands the political landscape of the country, and so far we are moving to 2 weeks and no news or no much pressure from the Northwest House of Chiefs. Their phone was kidnapped, and till date it's like a forgotten story.
Yes, it's like a forgotten story, because even the House of Chiefs, we have not had any communique from them talking on the issue. And
their president.
Yes, and up till now we are still waiting. Maybe their hands to our tight. When I used to say that in this country, at times you see commissions, and commissions are created, houses are created to share positions to friends. People will say that I talk too much. At times, those commissions are created like that. They don't give them a fair, how do they call it, fair the route. That means the job description is not clear. That that means that without substance, they don't have any power to do anything. When this House of Chiefs came about, people say that no, the House of Chiefs are going to solve the Anglophone problem. That before now there was a House of Chiefs. Yes, there was a House of Chiefs. But if the National Assembly and the Senate could not solve this Anglophone problem, could not even discuss it, that the National Assembly, the upper and the lower house, that we know have power to even discuss something. They have not discussed anything concerning this Anglophone problem. Do you think that the House of Chiefs will have any power to discuss it or even solve it? I ever seen this Anglophone problem started. We never saw the government call any chief or any fund that come to Yaoundé. You are closer to these boys, you are closer to these villages. Come and tell us what is your policy so that we see how we can solve this problem. They were not called.
But no. We had Minister Paul Atangandi in 2016 December in one of his media outings states that when he was asked, as we speak right now, how is the situation in Bamenda, he said, we have the chiefs who are talking to the people, we have the politicians who are talking to the people. But he said these are people talking, the chiefs were talking to the people. So when you are saying
which chiefs?
He was
when you say chiefs, we know that we have some chiefs who are for CBTM chiefs, and we have some chiefs that are still closer to the people. I don't want to mention names, because if I should mention names, we understand that some chiefs are unable to go back to the villages where they are chiefs because of their relationship with the system. Now, these chiefs were not consulted, because if they were consulted to speak the truth of what is happening on the ground, I think that we will not be where we are today. After all, we are already there. Now, one of them, their head has been taken into captivity. And up till now, nobody has said anything. What do you expect them to say? What power have they got to confront those boys? They don't have no guns. They have no armor cars. They have no military guards. What do you think will and they have even lost, some of them have even lost credibility vis-a-vis their population.
Excuse me. We're told that chiefs possess supernatural powers, that in the time of their coronation, they go to the dark room and they spend time talking with their ancestors. I have witnessed it. And these are chiefs, collection of chiefs. Do you want to tell me that they don't have that powers to arrest the situation?
I happen to be close to a palace, so I know what happens. See,
or what we always see is just a smooth screen.
It's not a smooth screen. It's deeper than even what you see or what they even tell you. It is deeper. When a chief that is not placed by somebody, because here in this country now, in the northwest and the southwest, people come and put the chiefs that they want. Meanwhile, chieftaincy was supposed to be hereditary. That when a fund is disappearing, he says that upon my disappearance, this is the person that will take over. But because of politics, they will say that no, since this man is rich, he goes and give money to some group of persons who will come and enthrone him. No, Jarvis, let me learn. Briefly. Who will come and enthrone him, and at the end of the day, he is unable. There's I know so many chiefs who cannot sit on the throne. Because if they sit on the throne will slaughter them. Tradition is not a joke in the northwest. I don't know about southwest. You sit on that throne of the real throne of the phone who disappear, you will die. So they don't sit on it. They all have to carve their own thrones and put by the corner, and they are using by those thrones. What am I saying? I am saying that the supernatural powers of these chiefs or the phones disappear immediately. You start living life like this, leaking from behind and from the front. When you start dining with the devil, the ancestors stop backing you. And when they stop backing you, now you are on your own, as is commonly said. When you are on your own, those boys now can kick you, toss you the way they want, and nothing will happen. So chiefs who are eating and dining with the devil should know that they are on their own, because spiritually they don't have any backing again. They are chiefs without substance.
Mbaku, Jude, you've been reading news. You are a journalist. I'm sure you've been reading headlines and following up articles as far as this is concerned. The Northwest House of Chiefs were they were quick to issue the communique when attacks were done in Boya, and also when some other attacks were done in the northwest region of the country. But we are not seeing them that active when their boss was kidnapped.
You see, the Northwest, the House of Chiefs, it was, to me, a political creation. And the political creation has its tune that it works with. So, we were to write a communique, you know that the communique will dance to a political tune. That said, there was a NOWEFO, a Northwest Funds Union. In fact, there exists that union. I don't know how the national activities are right now, because that's what used to operate. We had the Northwest NOWEFO, Northwest Funds Union, and their presidents. And this structure used to be very powerful. I'm talking before the crisis, because the crisis has come and scattered many things. The structure used to be powerful in a way that I'm sure if we had maybe someone like Tamfu Barrister Nico Hale watching us, he will be able to tell you how the Tamfu thing worked there. Yes, and how how powerful that place was, how they structured themselves as funds. The crisis has really weakened them, because in your various communities, when you're unable to take part as a fund, we've seen, I don't want to call them hoodlums, because I cannot imagine why people would desecrate their own ancestral roots. I've seen young men who have been radicalized, who have gone into their villages and have usurped the power of the community from their palaces. How then do we expect? The fund is a human first, in as much as we attach some kind of supernatural powers to them, or in as much as they have those powers. They are humans created by God. Meaning that they have the same blood and flesh that we all have. You cannot expect him to just disappear into thin air, and these are persons like us. You understand? So my worry here is, or my idea here is that when this kind of kidnaps happen, they have the human limitations, which we can also not blame. By the way, you should respect such traditional authorities. They are there. Mr. Atanji, when Mr. Atanji says they are talking to the people,
Mr. Atanji said
they are actually talking.
Yes,
they are talking.
We have chiefs talking to the people. We have their phones talking to them.
And they are talking.
And that the situation is under control. That was 2016.
No, it might not be under control, but they are talking. The phones are talking to their people. Whether for which other reason or which, I think they are talking. What you say now is not of my concern. But the truth is, every community has its way to regard its palace, its ancestral roots. Every community has. The same that happens in Com might not be the same with us in Batibo, or the same in Wabane, or wherever, or even in Boya. So you see, every community will always want to bundle in that Anglophones, chief and funds, but it varies. Because if you respect your community, if you respect where you're coming from, you not kidnap the father of your community. I don't think you should even, no matter how much weed you take, it should not even go to that extent. You understand? So our young people in this crisis, in this Amber struggle, they need those people pushing and cautioning them, needs to give them restraint to understand that what they are fighting for is what they are desecrating.
Okay.
You cannot just because you are fighting, you are hungry, you eat your own fingers. It does not make sense. So my people, these chiefs, I followed this one who was kidnapped. He was struggling to reconcile the community. That's their role. Talk to the people, see how they can bring back some activities that can gather people. People need to live in peace. We will not fight like this forever. So in as much as you think that you have something, it is not this chief. Somebody was saying that they are sending a message to President Biya. What even concerns President Biya with this chief at this point? We know where the crisis is. There are people who have been killed, who have died, who have suffered. Thousands of people have died. So how does killing or kidnapping a chief?
When I said at the beginning of my outing that these chiefs, at the beginning of this crisis, or before this crisis, they were never communicating with the government.
Said they have been talking to
no, they are talking.
I said talking with the government. The government was supposed to use these chiefs as representatives because
but the government
from all
government has been using
it. Mr. Paul Atanganji can say that the government has been there, they are talking to the people. It means that the government have been telling them.
What have they been talking to the people?
Peace.
Have they been talking also to the government? Have they been taking what the people are saying and telling the government?
No, Tamfu is one of the problems we have. Tamfu, see, when government uses the chiefs to send our message, you say chiefs are working with government. That's the problem.
Who says so? You say I'm saying so. Have I ever said anything?
No, that's what you are saying.
It's not what I'm saying. You are putting words into my mouth. Don't force me.
So leave the chiefs.
Okay, what are you saying?
What I am trying to say is that if the government was close to these chiefs from day one, I don't think that we'll have this problem.
No, you say they are working with government.
Thank you. Mr. Jarvis, 5 divisional delegates kidnapped Indian, 1 killed, government stay mute. Fon of Bambalang kidnapped. I think it is just normal for the government, even the governor of the Northwest region is quiet. Chai, I think the Fon of Bambalang should learn a political lesson. Paul from DOP. This other one, it says, Wabane subdivision is endowed with oil palms, cocoa, plantain, banana, cassava, macabu, potatoes, Irish, beans, vegetable, citruses, and many others. All we need is road. We shall do the rest. It's coming from John N. Thank you very much. Sir Andrew Ebako, the 5 divisional delegates were kidnapped. 1 was killed. Till now, we don't know about the rest. The Fon of Bambalang, president of the House of Chiefs. How do we understand that a Fon is even kidnapped by these people from a Pan-African perspective? Is that not desecration of the same values that you are preaching or you are standing for, and that we all are claiming for, that we should go back to Anglo-Saxon culture?
TAH MAI Jarvis, we are lost in Cameroon. That's the simple truth. There's just a lot of complications and issues that it would take Cameroonians a lot of time to understand. You see, the struggle here is democracy and our culture. That's the whole struggle, whether the kidnapping, the Anglophone crisis, and all of that. We are struggling with what does not work for us. And we have a government in place which seems to be holding a system which, like I keep saying, does not still meet the demands of its own society. If you are talking of the boys desecrating the palace, that is what the government is doing. Like he rightly said, if the government in the beginning was close to the Fons and the chief, we will not be where we are today. The same late Fon V.E. Mukete called the governor of Southwest when he rallied all the chiefs in the Northwest and Southwest to meet him at his palace. The governor refused that meeting. He refused that meeting from taking place. And Fon V.E. late Mukete said that you people are the cause of this problem. Because at that time, the chiefs were still in control of the people. And they could solve the problem at that time. Because what the people needed was a mediator between the state and the people.
A true mediator.
A true mediator. A good political leader who had a good political will for his people. And the government refused and decided to handle the problem in their own way until it went out of order. And now they call in the chiefs when it's already too late. That is another form of, how will I call it? No. It's like you are sending them into suicide mission. That's the way I can put it. So if in the beginning the government or the state respected the positions of these individuals, that in our culture we esteem Fons higher than presidents, because those thrones are there from one generation to another generation. Like he rightly said, the power is hereditary. Do you know that in 1933, TAH MAI JARVIS, do you know why Hitler abolished the office of a president in Germany and abolished all political parties? When you are in a moment of construction like where we are, we don't need parties, we don't need democratically elected president. We need people who have good political will for their people. We need leaders who know what is good for their nation. We claim that we don't want dictators, but China today that we are consuming their products, they have a dictator. In China and even in many...
Shinzo Abe.
Yes. So if you live in a society where everybody can do what they want to do, laissez-faire is just like a busy street with no
America
street.
is facing a hyperinflation as we speak right now.
That's what I'm trying to say, that there is no freedom of speech anywhere, Mr. TAH MAI JARVIS, until we learn to go back and start living.
Because even the freedom that is enshrined in Constitution that you have a right to choice, but we are seeing the vaccine mandate, which is coming back, which is the same thing that the West has stood against.
Those are all double standards. We just have to admit it. There's no democracy in any part of the world. Those are the double standards. And until we learn to understand that these things that we are trying to fight, until we have, how will I call it, the center of democracy in Africa, we are making a very big mistake. That's why I'm saying that we are removing our values. We are sending our values away. We are disrespecting the very core of who we are to embrace something that we will never be, something that is destroying us. And that is why you realize that the boys we have taken a hostage of those individuals do not seem to esteem them of any esteem, because these are leaders, or these are officials, let me put it that way, who are representing a government that do not have a relation. Master, Cameroonians are suffering. That is a simple truth. And you say you permit me, and you say you have a government. What is the role of the government? It's just like you say you have a father who is well off doing, and your father is not doing anything for you. That is the way I can put it. It's true. We need we really need to organize ourselves, TAH MAI JARVIS. This is very important, because to see the way Africa and Cameroon has become today, it seems as if we are harboring a very white lion who at the end of the day is going to destroy all of us. That is the way it is. So we need to bundle ourselves. At our age, we should be commanding Cameroon. That is a simple truth. Biya entered this, when he entered as a minister, how old was he? 35. I'm older than him when he entered power. Why should I not be commanding today? This is what we are talking about.
It's simply because you are the leaders of tomorrow.
But no.
You are the leaders of tomorrow.
TAH MAI JARVIS, we have come of age. That is why we are coming on air discussing what we are discussing.
Maybe the has not yet come now.
No, we are already of age.
Okay.
We are of age, and we are realizing that at the point at which we are, it is our future that they are toiling with. It is our future that they are discussing
Mr. Ernest, the Fon of Bambalang is still under captivity. You are from the Northwest region. We consider funds as the base of our fandoms and those who communicate with the ancestors. The House of Chiefs, which he's president under, has not reacted robustly as they should, as we've seen them issuing communiques in other areas. Of recent, we had the president of the House of Chiefs clash with the Northwest Regional House of Assembly when he issued a communique, and at the end of the day, he was forced to withdraw the communique because he wanted to do a tour to see how they can resolve the Anglophone crisis. And basically now he's kidnapped, and we are not seeing the same House Regional Assembly that were truncated, that has a lot of power. Is it that their hands are tied?
Jarvis, I will not answer your question directly. I would like to address myself to the leaders of the separatist movement in Cameroon, because touching at the core of societal unity is actually a sure fact of the kind of ideology they represent. Look, in the society I grew up, I give God the glory that I had to grow up in a village setting where I had to learn all the intricacies of village setting and how society is organized. I grew up in a family, a polygamous family, where the father was a head and nobody could counteract his words. We grew up to love and respect our father, and we knew that he was a man when his voice is heard, everybody adjusts his position and everything in the house is arranged. From the father of the house, we go on to the headquarter, with whom every issue was addressed at the level of the quarter until it becomes necessary that the chief of the village was to be sent. And going to the palace was something so solemn that most people would grow up in the village and die without even knowing the road of the palace. And today, with what we call modernism, which is an attack on our cultural values and on the person with whom we are, that has made us to lose the identity we have, and we have become lost beings in the world without any mindset of our own. We have gone down, stooped low as animals, like a snake eating itself from the tail and believing to be doing harm to another object, to attack the various representative of whatsoever that we stand for. It is despicable of us. We should rethink the kind of ideologies that are in our heads. We should rethink the kind of ideas we have. We should look at the values we are actually defending before we come out. The Fon of Bambalang is a father to the Bambalang people. And I believe, and I'm strongly convinced, that those who have kidnapped him are not strangers to the palace. They are people who have been brainwashed. Let me tell my brothers and sisters who are staying in Europe, America, Asia, everywhere, supporting this fight. You are not in your house and you are fighting your brothers who you have left behind and killing them. The people who are fooling you there, that they are supporting you for democracy. Let me define the word democracy to you if you don't know. Democracy means the demonstration of craziness. You come back home, now we used to say blood is thicker than water. But today, water has nothing to do with blood. Blood is thicker than water, which means that what? Our own political interest has become so much important that we have to eat our own brothers as meals. We kidnapped them, killed them. The other day I was following on BBC radio how they interview one of the leaders who has kidnapped a worker in Sonne, and he was asked, what will you do with him if snake don't pay the ransom? He said, they will pay. You look at how little is in his mind. They will pay. What if they refuse to pay? They will pay. How can you determine that somebody will pay? What will you do to the person? He is your brother who is trying to look for bread, and you say they must pay an extra person. These funds, like my co-panelist Atem Mbaku said, these funds were neglected from the onset. You know, let me tell you the intention.
Now, so my question is, what explains why the House of Chiefs is quiet?
Let me tell you the intention of these chiefs neglected from the onset. Let me tell you, these whites who are so much preaching about democracy, who are telling us our rights. Our rights are not the rights of democracy. These people have the intention of maintaining chaos all throughout Africa in what possible way it should be. Let me tell you what chaos does to a people. Chaos to a people is like it stops thinking, rightful thinking, developmental thinking. You have to think about your safety. You have to think about feeding yourself. Today we're talking about food scarcity. It is because people have been unable to produce because they are running helter-skelter, thinking of their safety, trying not to. If you already have food and you are already safe, what you need to think is to create. They don't want Africa to create. And that is why they will bring up our brothers to come and be fighting us, pushing us to be running helter-skelter for our own safety, and we remain in the same position of underdevelopment and referred to as third wars. Let us rise up and regain back our consciousness. I understand that we have to identify ourselves with brothers and sisters. Let the Fon of Bambalang be released to his people so that he can address the people from his fatherly throne and know what to do.
We have just about 1 or 2 minutes to go. My question to you is, why is the House of Chiefs quiet?
The House of Chiefs is quiet because they are under threat.
Okay, the hands are tied.
The hands are tight because the mechanism that is being used in touching the people starts from, they say, you hit the head, the snake dies. So the House of Chiefs are there. They know once they make a careless move, they are going to sanction them.
Okay.
Yes, their hands
So
are
it means
tied.
they are selling the rights of the people to
Let
the
me tell you that
that's what you are saying.
there is a force that they present to them that if you do this thing, this is what we are going to do to you. Where we have to stand firm is to re-own our minds.
Okay, so you are saying that they are afraid to react because the government may sanction them. Am I correct?
Let me answer that. Can I answer it?
Briefly.
First, the chiefs, that's the leader, kidnapped. The rest are scared because these days the boys target just anybody if they can pick the president. Meaning that when you make a communique, focus goes on you. I don't know what comes. On the other side of the coin, we know what this government is. We don't play to their rules. You're under critical eyes. That is the fix.
So they are caught between the devil and the WC.
That is the situation. That all of us.
So there's no way out.
No, we can just be praying.
Cut off because he told the king his sins. Today we should be able to identify our sins.
Thank you.
Even if the heads are cut off.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming, Mayor Ernest. Happy Sunday.
Thank you, Jarvis. Let us be honest with ourselves and let us be able to speak the truth. Like I was saying, John the Baptist had his head cut off because he spoke truth. Let us speak truth, even if our heads are to be danced with in the streets. Let us tell our brothers that they are not doing the right thing. They are attacking authority, constituted authority, and thinking that they are fighting for the people. They are not fighting for the people.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming. We'll talk this some other time. There's a particular way Atem Mbaku wants to look at democracy. And he's here complaining that he's not leading at this age. And he's endorsing dictatorship. Yet,
thank you for coming back with you.
Let's talk this some other time.
Yes,
thank you very much for having.
Of course, Tamfu Jones, thank you for coming.
It was my pleasure.
Atem, thank you for coming.
Always a pleasure.
Those of you who may want to be panelists or participate in this program, is open. The number that you see on the screen is my number. Contact me. You'll be a panelist. I don't want to hear you say, Mr. Jarvis, don't invite this, please. If you want us to invite you, come and talk, as long as you take responsibility for your statement. And also, those you want us to invite, tell them that please go to House of Commons, contact Mr. Jarvis. This is his number. He will book you in. It's free. I don't charge any fee participation. The only responsibility is that you take charge of what you say. This program comes up every Sunday at exactly 12 to 1:30 p.m. rebroadcast on Monday at 10:30. Rebroadcast again on that same Sunday, of course, at 10:30. I'll leave you with this: no matter the matter, what matter is your matter. No matter the matter, what matters is your matter. And what should matter for you this day is that stay out of trouble. My name is TAH MAI JARVIS from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Fengu Jong Bangere. Bye-bye.